Today, I want to talk about emotional health. Does it ever bother you that people don't like you? Is that a concern that you have? And how do we teach our kids to be able to handle with the haters as well as those who love us? So that's what we're going to get into today. So let's talk about this. What is emotional health or emotional intelligence, I guess is what I would say first. Emotional intelligence is controlling your thoughts rather than allowing your thoughts to control you. And it's being aware of your emotions and in control of your emotions. So rather than just reacting from what I call a bad brain spot, which is a chemically driven spot of the brain where all of a sudden I feel pain or I feel fear, anger, something like that. And so I go very emotional. And the moment that that happens, we have a potential to lose our intelligence, if you will, our creative abilities, and we stop thinking and we start reacting from much more of a place of pain, hurt, fear, anger, those types of things. So we want to be emotionally healthy as much as we can. The majority of what we do on a day-to-day basis, our successes and our wins are built upon what happens up here and being able to stay in control of our emotions rather than just going off half-cocked because somebody has ticked us off or we're operating from insecurities and fear, staying in control of that. So emotional intelligence, I think, is something very important. I'm going to wrap it up with why I think it's so important, especially in the age that we're in, for our kids to have this. So let's get into a little bit about it's okay for people not to like you. Perhaps if you're like me, you might have grown up hearing from different people, what will people think? And your behavior, there was an awareness drawn to your behavior, what other people were looking at, and an awareness that that was going to affect, what would you say? Like you actually had some sense of control over what people thought by what you put out for them to believe. And so from a very young age, maybe you developed the idea that people will like you or people will receive you or listen to you or whatever if you can put off a good enough front for them to accept. But here's the harsh reality. Not everybody likes you. There are people that just, you rub them wrong. And it doesn't matter how hard you try and how pretty you try to be or how perfect you try to be, how well you keep your house, how nice your husband is to their husband. None of that's going to matter. They're just not going to like you. And it's important that we understand that as adults because we will convey those insecurities and fears or health to our children. We get what we lead. And more important than telling our kids how to think is that we demonstrate for them how to think in our own lives. I, at times, am the most unhealthy person in my children's life, and I have given them the most unhealthy example. And then at other times, I've been able to provide a healthy example to them. So it's important that I understand this so that I can help them work through these emotions too, because as their world grows and as they become older, they're going to also have to learn how to cope with the fact that there are going to be people who don't like them. So a couple of tricks that I can give to help you and I and our children cope with this. Before I do, again, if you're watching, love to have you comment for a chance to have 2,500 reward points added to your account. If you don't know about reward points, we can put a link in. A great way to have some additional buying power at Master Books. So here's two things that I can give you to help start developing some emotional intelligence in this area. Number one is the law of numbers. In any group, there's going to be a percentage of people who don't like you, period. I've heard the number as high as 20%. I think a safe number is 10%. So if there are 10 people in a group, let's say you work in a place with 10 people, or you have a family of 10 people, or a church of 10 people. One person out of that group is just not going to like you. They don't like you because of your mannerisms. They don't like you because of your name. They don't like you because of something you do that reminds them of somebody else. That's just a statistic. One person is going to think that you actually hung the moon. They're going to love you and they are your fan. And doesn't really matter what you do. They're just going to think you are awesome. 8 of those 10 people probably don't care much either way. They can be swayed to either hate you or love you, but they're focused on things other than you. So the majority of the world really doesn't care. If we take that number and we increase it, right? So we have the, here's 10 people. Now let's increase it to an average church, 100 people. Okay, now 10 people in that organization don't like you. They don't like you. And there's nothing you're going to do to change their mind. In fact, the harder you try, the less they'll like you. Then there's 10 people in that group that love you and think you're incredible, you're the best. Then we move out to 80 people who really don't notice you. that may love you, may not. It can come and go. It's not a big deal. Well, now let's expand it even more. Let's say 1,000 people, right? In 1,000 people, there may be 100 people that don't like you. There may be 100 people that love you. And again, that number could be as high as 20%. And then there's 800 people that really don't. They could go either way. They're indifferent. We see that in this group a lot, where you have a lot of different people come into a group, and some people are just, wow, right? I mean, we love this group. We love the way it's run. We love, everything. Then there's a group of people who are just, no, we don't like you. We don't like the way you talk. We don't like the things you talk about. We don't like the Bible translation you have, whatever. There's just something that they don't like. And then there's a much larger percentage that are interested in what we have to say. They're taking things from it, but they're not really all that emotional into it. Well, here's the problem that we have often as people. We tend to focus on the haters or the lovers, and we ignore everybody else. So if I have a group of 100 people and there's 10 people that love me and I love the accolades, so I really just keep looking to them for more affirmation and more affirmation, well, now I'm ignoring the other 90% of the people in my life. If I only listen to the haters and I spend all my time trying to make them love me, which is impossible, but if I continue to try to make them love me, then what I'm going to do is ignore the other 90% of the people in my life. And this is the problem a lot of leaders have. It's a problem a lot of us have. We tend to be so focused on the people who hate us that we tend to ignore everybody else in our life who doesn't. And the reality is a hater is a hater. You're not going to influence them not to hate you. And when you have the idea of the law of numbers, it's easier then to be able to accept it and stay in a good brain spot where I say, okay, here's an organization. There's 20 people. Statistically, that means 2 people in this group probably aren't going to like me. And I'm okay with that because that means this is a healthy group. Here's a couple people who I really connect with and who love me, and that's fantastic. And then there's everybody else in the room. And I'm not going to focus on just these 2 people that hate me because I expect that now. So when I was pastoring, and I pastored a church of anywhere from 100 to 150 people, there were people that didn't like me. They didn't like my style. They didn't like my family. They didn't like, it's just something, right? It was much healthier on a Sunday if I could say, that's okay. There's 10 people in this room who are staring daggers at me and think that my singing is awful or my preaching is awful or something of that nature. It's okay. I expect that. In a room this size, I expect there to be 10 people who find me offensive for some reason. I can't please them. Doesn't mean I have to hate them. In fact, Matthew 5, and I think in Luke, same thing, love your enemies, bless those who curse you. I think it's much easier to do that when we know that those people are going to exist, because there are people in my life that I really don't like too. Doesn't mean I don't love them. It just means I don't like them. There's just something about them that doesn't make me, I'm not drawn to them. So I have to expect that there are going to be people who aren't drawn to me as well. So number one would be the law of numbers, understanding that in any situation, in a room, in an organization, whatever, there's going to be a percentage of people. I think it's a safe number to say 10%, but as high as 20%, unless you're an unlikable person, and then maybe it's higher. But okay, so maybe the 20%. But just to know that when I come into that room, and to let our kids know that when they come into a new situation, they're not going to have everybody in the room like them either. There's going to be people who are drawn to them and who will like them, and they may become close friends. There's going to be a lot of people who are friends and acquaintances, and then there are people that they may hold off a little bit farther, right? And if you've watched in the past where I talk about, you have your friends and acquaintances, and then your friends are closer on the inner circle. So in this case, maybe I identify that, there's some people here who they don't seem to like me, so we're going to kind of keep them farther out on the outside. But it's healthier to have that understanding. And sometimes, even with our kids, it's important to understand that there are leadership that comes into their lives who may also not like them. Out of 10 people that are leaders in their life, there may be one that really just doesn't like them. Now, I think in some cases like that, it's better to remove yourself from their counsel than to stay in that situation. But don't be shocked when somebody doesn't like you, because that's just normal. So having an awareness of the law of numbers, walk into the room. If it's a brand new room, I have to know that by the end of this time, there's going to be a couple people, one, depending on how big the room is, that 10% of people who really don't like me. So that's number one. Number two, another great illustration that I've heard and love to use is peaches. Now, some people love peaches. Kristen loves peaches, and I don't. And for some reason, I don't like the texture. I don't like the taste. I'm not a fan of peaches. Maybe if there's enough sugar and whipped cream and other stuff, I can take it. But I'm not a fan of peaches. Well, let's say that as a person, you are the biggest, juiciest, nicest peach there is. If you don't like peaches, you don't like peaches. So in my life, I can work really hard to be who I am, right? An awareness of who I am and everything that makes me me. But so I can be the biggest, juiciest peach there is. But if you don't like peaches, you're not going to like me. And so what I can do is understand that, I'm not your peach. It's that easy. And I can actually give you permission to keep looking. Maybe you're a pear person or an apple person. It's okay. You don't have to like me. I'm not your peach. You kind of see how that helps me stay in a much healthier place. I don't have to convince you to like me. There are people in the world who like me. There are people in the world who get me. There are people in the world who benefit from being in a relationship with me. Not everybody's going to, and it's okay because I'm not your peach. We see this a lot with Master Books Curriculum, and sometimes people may actually think we're even kind of cruel when we say we encourage you and we bless you. We weren't your curriculum. It's okay. Go find it. It's okay. We're not your peach. Not a problem. There's a group of people in the world that Master Books resonates with and works for, and their family is benefiting from. Their kids are growing. They're growing, and it's working. That's who we wrote it for. We wrote it for you. To those who are looking for something different and it doesn't resonate with, we want to bless them and encourage them and give them permission to keep looking. It doesn't do any good for me to try to convince somebody who doesn't like peaches to like peaches. So for me, when somebody comes in and they really don't like something about, say, Master Books, for me to continue to try to convince them that they should, when I just know that it's an issue of this style doesn't resonate with you. And there's probably another company that is publishing a curriculum that does resonate with you. So I want to bless you in that. I want to say, I'm not your peach. No worries. Be blessed. Go find what you're looking for. So it's much easier to stay emotionally healthy when I recognize there are going to be people who don't like me. Know that. In fact, if there's it's said, like in business, if everybody likes you, your product, then you're not reaching the net far enough. You're too closed because you're not opening up enough, right, to enough of the market. It's the same in our lives. If I only surround myself with people who like me, I'm missing out on a lot of life. So I have to expect that the more I open myself up and the more I market or advertise or send out catalogs, the more my percentage is going to grow of people who don't like me, because now I'm reaching more people who may not like peaches. So being able to have this discussion with my kids in different times, we do have this discussion. Sometimes it's because I'm struggling. Sometimes it's because I'm emotionally unhealthy. And so I share with them, this is what I'm going through. I'm not in a good brain right now. I'm in bad brain because this is kind of taking me off guard, and I'm trying to find emotional health in this. And so I'm telling them I need to recognize that there's people who don't like me. I need to recognize that I'm not for everyone, but the people that I am for and the relationships that do work, it's healthy and it's growing and it's beneficial. To the ones that's not, it's not beneficial for me to continue trying to convince them otherwise. There's a flip side to this as well. And that's when we try to make somebody who's not a peach become a peach. And it's not always about what I'm receiving. Sometimes it's also easy for me to try to make somebody be something I want them to be, rather than accepting them for who they are, because I want the relationship to work, or I want whatever benefits there are from forcing this person or organization to be something they're not. Sometimes you see this in a church dynamic. A lot of us in this group participate in church. You'll see a family come in and they may not use a certain scripture translation, which we believe every family should choose the translation that they are most comfortable with and teach from that translation. But I'm using this as an illustration. Or perhaps they don't like the style of worship, or they don't like the fact that the pastor wears skinny jeans with tears in the legs, any of these types of things. And even though the church is healthy and prospering and is bearing fruit, this family will try to change the church to fit their expectations. And it never ends well, right? Because the church's dynamic fits the pastor with skinny jeans and torn holes in the jeans, and a worship service that's a little rowdier, and you know, that's who they are, and it was a bad fit. Sometimes we see this with the curriculum in Master Books. A family will come in and they may not like the fact that the author presented the material this way, and rather than just accepting that, they will go overboard trying to make us change that to fit what they believe it should be. Now, the problem with this, and why we have to be careful, is because in some levels we can become very narcissistic in this. It can be all about me, and I'm going to see everything around me as an extension of who I am. And so I want church to be what I want it to be, and I want my curriculum to be what I want it to be, and I want my family to be what I want them to be, rather than accepting them for who they are and finding good fits and looking for emotionally healthy places where there's balance, not trying to force everybody around me to be something they're not, so that they can be my peach. I like peaches, so I want everything around me to be peach. And that's not reality either. So I have to know that in any situation, I'm also not going to love everything around me, and that's okay. And I want my kids to have that understanding as well. So why is this important? Health and happiness is one. You see a lot of people going through life trying to change everybody or trying to appease everybody, rather than just enjoying who God created them to be and allowing them to enjoy who God created you to be. So just a healthier place, to be healthier emotionally and emotionally intelligent, is a lot less stress than trying to change the world or change myself to fit other people's expectations. And there's a lot of balance in this, and this is a very brief, 20 minutes into a discussion that we could probably go for days talking about. But it's a good awareness place to say, wow, am I working really hard to appease some people in my life that I'm never going to satisfy? And it's okay. Give myself some permission to step back and say, that person I'm probably never going to really satisfy. And I'm going to give them permission as well to know that I'm different than what they expect. So health and happiness is definitely one that I think is important. I think especially as we teach our kids that they're going to have spouses, and their spouses, they may be drawn to a pear, right? And they may be a peach, but they don't need to turn their spouse into a pear. Now, the pear needs to be the best pear it can be, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be a peach. So we want to be able to accept who we are and accept others as well in this case. And we want to be careful not to become narcissistic in our behavior in a way that we expect everything to be what we want it to be as well. The other thing that I'm going to give you as a reason that this is important is because our culture is changing really fast. Social science is taking leaps and bounds, and what they're learning is how to trigger people's emotions without triggering the brain. I bypass the brain to trigger the emotions. Marketing, there's a lot of study going on with this right now, and the more you study it, the more you watch some marketing, and you'll be like, all that did was trigger bad emotions and make me step away. It made me feel fear, anxiety, whatever. It used to be that we would market to get attention and to get noticed. That isn't as big anymore. What you're seeing is a lot more of feelings and connections and stories and those types of things in marketing. Why we need to have an awareness of this is because when my emotions get triggered, I will do things that I don't even think about. If I can make you feel fear, you will respond to the fear rather than responding logically to what's being presented. If I can make you feel insecurity or anger or some kind of emotion, you will react automatically. You will go into kind of a bad brain place automatically without thinking intelligently about what's happening. Our kids need to know this because especially like social media and things like that. And we've done this, in marketing, you experiment a little bit even with when you put a post out there, the words you use in the post elicit certain emotions from the customers that you have. And if you're not careful, you can create very bad impressions or good impressions just by using words. One of the reasons I love Writing Strands is because there's so much emphasis on the meaning of words and the way we say things and how we position ourselves. And I think that as that series continues to develop and grow over the time, we can address even more of those things because communication is changing, right? A text message, the emoji we use, capital letters, small letters, the words, even the acronyms that we use are sending messages. Well, companies are learning how to use messages to trigger people's emotions to make them do things. This is why when you hear about, Facebook is changing, the results of an election. The way they're doing that is not by telling you who to vote for, it's by triggering the emotions that move you in the direction of one candidate or the other. And you may not understand even why you're doing that. And social science has gotten to the point where they can manipulate people into moving into a direction. And people don't even want to go there, but they can predict the people's direction better than the person can predict it themselves because they've studied this to that level of detail. So it's important for our kids to understand what's going on up here all the time. Am I reacting out of insecurity, out of fear? Am I reacting out of a need that I have to feel loved or valued? Or am I healthy? Am I comfortable with who I am? And do I understand some of the things like, there's going to be people who don't like me, and that's okay. I'm not your kind of peach. You're just you're 2 out of 10 that don't like me. I expected you to be here. Thank you for showing yourself to me because now I can be comfortable with the fact that everybody else in the room is comfortable with who I am. So hopefully this is a blessing and a benefit to you. I know a question was raised recently about Master Books and doing the teaching tips, and we don't always talk about the curriculum, and why do we do that? And is it inconsistent with the fact that we want this group to be about talking about the curriculum? Well, this one video that we do, Teaching Tips Thursday, is our way of giving back to this group. And we recognize that we have been blessed by having some fantastic mentors. We also have had some life experience behind us. And as we saw the dynamics of the group coming together and we saw where families were struggling, sometimes they were blaming things that weren't really curriculum related, or they weren't really homeschooling related. They were just more kind of growth related. And so if we could share some experience that would help kind of jumpstart and leapfrog over some of the mistakes that we've made or we've seen other families made, we knew that it would be a better environment for Master Books curriculum, actually. And so we want to see you succeed. We want to see you win. We want to see your kids win. We know, and I've said this so many times, this movement of homeschooling, your kids have a call of God on their life. And the enemy will seek to kill, steal, and destroy. And if he can do it up here, he wins. He convinced Eve to give up everything God had promised by just making her doubt and raising insecurities that God wasn't being truthful to her. We want to be people who are thoughtful, who renew our minds. We want our kids to be trained in this so that they don't just respond emotionally to everything that comes. And especially in a world that's being groomed to operate completely emotionally and not as thoughtfully or intelligently. So part of doing teaching tips and trying to give back information is really to help all of us grow as a tribe and to see our kids grow and prosper and the call that they have. And they are called. I'll end with this, but every generation that we've seen that's significant, we have seen the enemy attack them. And I believe that your children, that you're homeschooling, are part of a remnant that God has set aside, very much like Moses. When Moses' mom made the decision to set him in the basket and to differentiate him rather than see him executed. And then what happened was remarkable, because as Moses was found, he was given back to the mom to educate in the ways of the Jewish people. And that was how a remnant was spared, and Moses became the leader that the Lord would use. We don't have to worry about putting them in the position of leadership, because God will do that when he's ready, right? He did with Moses. He prepared him, he trained him. But what the obedience part was setting aside Moses and sparing him. And that's what you're doing today. Your kids are in the basket right now as you're educating them and training them and preparing them and equipping them. This is setting aside the remnant for the purposes that God has in the future, and God will use your children in the future because he has a call on them. This is a calling. This is not just let's save them from being bullied. This is, no, we're training them and preparing them and equipping them to be warriors for the kingdom of God. And so we bless you in that. We hope that we can encourage you and equip you with tools that help you do that. All right. Very good. Well, I pray that this week has been a blessing with your homeschool. It's so encouraging to see families that are getting it and are loving it. And you know what? If your family is still working to find joy in the journey with homeschooling, it's okay too. That this is something we grow in. We give room to grow in our families. And we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to, who cares what anybody else thinks? What matters is, are we growing? Are we giving our kids room to grow? And do we know where we're going? And if we have that, then we can enjoy the journey. Okay, I keep going on, so I'm going to stop. God bless you guys. Have a fantastic week.